Yes, welcome to our live talk show tonight. In case you are joining us here on zimdaily.com, we are streaming live to three different destinations here tonight. We are going to be discussing the latest news roundup from Zimbabwe. Joining me as usual here on Behind the Mic show, I've got my good friend Advocate Chapwanya, who's going to be helping us to dissect into the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe. And we are going to be having a discussion as well right here on Zim Daily. The topic for discussion, as you can see it on your screens tonight, is in light of the RBZ looting, can the men of cloth be trusted? We know there's quite a substantial number of them that have been benefiting from the looting that's currently happening in Zimbabwe. And some of them, they have not even said anything about the human rights abuses we currently see in Zimbabwe, because we know that they are very compromised. So tonight we're just going to try and break it down into little pieces so that we can all understand what's going on. And I have once again a well-respected lawyer, and he's also an advocate. Advocate Chapwanya will be joining me here, right here on Zim Daily. Thank you very much, and we sincerely apologize. Things did not go according to plan. We had tested everything as much as we tried to ensure that all the sound and everything is in place. For some reason, when we tried to go live, we could not just get the sound working, but we've tested it again, and I think we are good to go. Advocate, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. You just want to, before we obviously go live here, we want to introduce the topic for tonight. For those that are joining us for the first time, this is Behind the Mic. This is a live talk show where we get to discuss the latest or today's news roundup coming from Zimbabwe. And yesterday we were discussing something else different, but today we are looking at the topic in light of the RBZ looting. I think we ran a live breaking news live show earlier today, just to give you a bit of insight on what exactly we will be discussing and what we'll be discussing tonight. Advocate, do you just want to maybe, for the sake of our audience, break down the topic and also go through the latest news coming out of Zimbabwe tonight?
Right. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think in the afternoon we ran a breaking news story about the full list of RBZ looters, which was finally released. But at the moment, tonight we'll be looking at the men of the cloth, especially the archbishops who have kind of benefited from this looting, and they've never repaid their loans back to the RBZ. So before we go on into this topic, we would give you some roundup of the news, especially with regards to the arrest of the journalist, well-renowned journalist Wopo Chingono, and Jacob Ngaruvume, who were arrested on some kind of trumped-up charges with regards to inciting public violence, and in light of the 31st July demonstration which is about to take place. From what we've gathered, it looks like the legal team, they tried to put an application for bail at the Rotterdam Magistrates Court, but they have not been able to be granted bails. The state, they said they would look into the deliberations on Monday. Then they will know whether Opel and Jacob can be granted bail. So this is the state of affairs in Zimbabwe with regards to the latest to the arrest of Opel Chingono and Jacob Ngaruvume, who are actually being charged with inciting public violence, actually on a demonstration that has not even occurred. So this is the current situation. And also, we've also found that in light of the rising number of COVID cases in Zimbabwe, we've actually obtained a video currently, which was shot at the Market Square in Harare, where there appears to be not even social distancing, as people are seen gathering at the terminus to wait for their transport. I think it's the Zupco buses, but definitely from the looks of it, there is not even like any social distancing measures, and I really wonder how the government is going to deal with the increasing number of COVID cases, especially considering that there are not enough resources to deal with this pandemic. We have seen like well-developed countries who are struggling to deal with COVID, and knowing our country that there are not enough resources to deal with this, I think it will be just a very disastrous if the government is not able to do anything to protect its citizens. So at the moment, this is the current roundup of news. But with regards to the issue of the arrest of we'll probably have to wait until Monday to hear the full outcome of the bail application that was that was done at the Harare Magistrates Court, and probably they will, grant him bail. Obviously, we hope for the best for those who are arrested, especially Hopewell and Jacob Ngarume, who are charged with inciting public violence under the Criminal Law and Codification Act of Zimbabwe. Right. So our main topic tonight is
All right. Yes. Yeah. Maybe before we get to our topic, I just wanted to us to highlight some of what happened today at the Magistrate Court. We have managed to get some images from the bail hearing. I don't know whether it was a bail hearing or it was just a routine appearance for Hopewell and Jacob Ngaruvime. So we've got some footage here, some images that we managed to obtain earlier today. I just want to share this and maybe we can discuss a little. I think this is actually Hopewell today at the Harare Magistrate Court with Jacob Ngaruvime. If I can get this through, let me just have a look here. Yeah, so that's the images that we got earlier today. I think that's just on our right. You can see, I believe that's Hopewell, and then that's Jacob Ngaruvime there. So this is what transpired today. I think they were meant, we can see him in handcuffs. He was meant to appear. I don't know whether he pled any, he was given an opportunity to plead, but as far as we understand, this case is going to be heard again on Monday. What do you have to say about the images that we are seeing here? That's I don't think it's a very nice sight.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And knowing the current regime, they just want to deal with someone who's been arrested, like in a way of like trying to dehumanize them, But as we are saying that we all hope for the best on Monday, that when they finally decide on the bail application, probably they will be granted bail and be allowed to a fair hearing, which we can expect, at least, knowing what goes on in Zimbabwe, that even the judiciary is compromised as much as any other state bodies.
All right. I think what we saw also today, there was a ZANU-PF conference, press conference. Did you manage to have a look at that? I think they were trying to justify the arrest, just to show you how the police that are meant to be independent are working hand in glove with the ruling party. We know that there were some threats against Hopewell a couple of weeks ago. And just before, leading to his arrest, we had quite a lot of people in ZANU-PF say things. and we know once you come out in the open, especially if you are the ruling party in this case, the whole case becomes compromised. I don't know whether the judge is looking at whether the statements from Patrick Chinamasa a couple of weeks ago might have contributed or might have actually led to his arrest. What's your take on that?
Right. From my own point of view, and from what we have discussed in the afternoon, especially if you look at this list of the, of the looters from the RBZ, there are quite a number of, judges who are there. Quite a lot of them actually who is also benefited from the, from this looting. Why I am saying that is that because there are quite large amounts of money that they've got from this loan, and you see there's a link, there's a correlation between the judiciary and the state, of which in terms of the actual constitutional law, there must be separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. But
Right.
here, there's no separation of powers. We can actually see that the courts, they are controlled by the regime. Hence, these some of them, they are beneficiaries of the looting. So, in the event of trying to get justice for those who have been arbitrarily arrested, sometimes it might be difficult considering that the judges themselves have been captured by the state. So it's a matter of waiting and see what will be the outcome. But from what we have seen from this list, we can actually see that most of the judges, the higher court judges, quite a lot of them, they've actually benefited thousands and thousands of US dollars. These are not Zimbabwean dollars or Zimbabwean bonds. These are US dollars, which can count into millions and millions. So obviously, when they are handing their judgments, obviously they have to please their masters at the end of the day. But sometimes you can actually think that, look, this constitution, sometimes it's just on paper. It doesn't really work practical wise, because the denial of human rights, the mistreatment, the inhuman treatment, and the degrading treatment is all for us to see, and we'll just wait to see on Monday whether any impartial judgment will be given. Because as far as we are concerned, if someone is arrested, they are presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court of law or by the jury.
Right.
Yes. So that's my take on that one.
All right. I think it is also important for us to highlight some of these judges who have benefited from this RBZ looting. I'm just trying to pull a few of them here. I think if you can look at, I think Justice Ben Tlachwayo, for example, he is believed to have benefited to the tune of $49,801. So this is, I don't know whether even the RBZ or the central bank is actually involved or should be involved in issuing loans to individuals. Is this even legal? Because as far as we know, if you, as an individual, if I want a loan, I have to approach a retail bank, is it not the central bank? So what was going on here, them getting loans directly from the central bank?
Yes, right. It's as you can see here from the list, actually, probably the biggest beneficiaries in terms of the, those in the judiciary, the judges, actually, it could be this Mishrod Guamombe, I think is a magistrate, or is a chief magistrate. He actually benefited with the tune of US 107,848, followed by Justice Garwe, Paddington Garwe, 92,000, then Ichitakunya, 92,000, Thaddeus Garwe, 95,000. And this is serious money. This is serious money we're talking about. You see, so if we actually add up all the money that was benefited by these judges alone, probably would end up with $1 million, or at least more than $500,000 US dollars. So, you can actually see that the judiciary is seriously compromised in terms of them. That's why you see some of these determinations of the decisions that they make. They don't even show, impartiality, because, they are captured by the state. Because it's exactly as you are saying, my brother, to say that if they wanted a loan, they should have gone to the bank rather than go to the central bank, which is the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. How on earth could they, get a loan from the central bank? If I hear someone here to say that they've got a loan from the Bank of England, yet there are other banks like, Lloyds, GSP, NatWest, Halifax, and so, it raises some concern or some questions on how, everything is going on, behind the scenes. So it's something worrying that all these people, there are these people who are in high places, and as we have said, that even the attorney generals, former attorney generals, they all benefited. News reporters, even former president of Malawi, Bingwa Mutharika, he also benefited. So it's a grand scheme of looting that was perpetrated by these people, and they've never even bothered to return back the loans. And the main worry is that there are also men of the cloth who are involved in this grand looting of resources, which is the taxpayers' money. Over. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're just trying to link some of the judgments that we have seen coming out of these compromised courts with the loans that they receive from the RBZ, and we are just trying to explain here why the RBZ should be actually it's meant to be a bank for banks, isn't it? Not for individuals, but we have seen it issuing loans to very compromised individuals, and these are the same people that are presiding over the likes of the case presiding over Hopewell's case and also Ngaruvume's case. And as far as we know, we already see that there are some serious issues with that, because these are sworn ZANU-PF sympathizers. We have seen them at ZANU-PF rallies. They attend ZANU-PF functions. We don't see them at any of, at least if they were objective, I don't think there's anything wrong with them attending political functions, but if they are also attending opposition functions, then we know that they are objective in the way they handle themselves. But we know that is not the case for Zimbabwe. So we just hope and wish that somehow Hope will be able to receive fair justice. I don't think there's anything called fair justice, but we hope that justice will prevail in Hopewell's case. If you're joining us, this is Behind the Mic. Right. We're looking at at latest news from Zimbabwe before we go into our main topic for tonight. So we're looking at the events for the day. Hopewell and Ngaruvume appeared at the magistrates' court today. They are remanded in custody until Monday. My understanding is they have to appear before their courts again on Monday. We're also looking at some of the judges or the magistrates that have benefited from the looting. This RBZ looting list that was released. Today we know that Mishrod Guvamombe, who was one of the very shrewd magistrates to ever grace our courts, benefited to the tune of 107,848. This is just what we know, and how much more. Of course, there's quite a lot of underhand dealings that were happening or that happen within these corridors of power. But we know Guvamombe, at least officially, benefited to the tune of 107,000. And there is a link between the people that are benefiting from these loans with the ruling party. We don't see anyone from the opposition. I don't know if you've gone through the list. I think there's only one gentleman called Gabriel Chaiva, who used to be the chairman, if my memory serves me well. He used to be an MDC chairman, and now he is a vocal ZANU-PF apologist. He also received about 88,000. So it looks like the moment you jump ship, there is a link between you opposing the opposition and receiving some money. What's your take on this?
Right. My main question on this one is who actually was giving orders for these loans to be released? Like, who was giving the orders to the RBZ? I understand that it was Gideon Gono at the time, who was the governor of the RBZ, and it was also, I think, Robert Mugabe was still in charge. So is it a matter of saying that, I'm giving this directive to say, give this person so much money, just, without any necessary processes to determine whether that person will be able to pay back the loan or anything like that? Because from this list, we can actually see that it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Take, for example, Vice President Joseph Sika here. He had a loan of US 678,867, right? Most of them, they were probably between 300,000, 400,000, and the biggest beneficiary was Robert Mugabe, who had US $2,239,109 dollars. You see the likes of Opamu Chinguri with 383,000, Rugare Gumbo 316,000, National Strombo. These are serious amounts, and it baffles the mind to say who was just giving those orders to say, okay, give Ningi 300,000 just like that, without any collateral, without any mechanism, without any due processes to assess whether these people will be able to to return the money to the central bank. So which actually shows that the central bank is actually probably, obviously it's run by ZANU-PF, because it's also compromised, because if probably someone refuses to say, no, we can't give out this loan, probably they will be faced with the threats of violence or anything, because at the end of the day, they just have to do what they are told to do. So it's a kind of a grand theft of public money, which is supposed to benefit the nation. Especially even at this difficult time. So we can actually see each and every high-ranking official, from the ministers to the judges to the reporters to the to the attorney generals, they all benefited. So this brings the point to say that's why this system is so entrenched that it will be very, very difficult, to uproot this kind of corruption, because each and everyone, they will be kind of sympathetic to this to this cause of looting, especially those who have benefited from the looting, not to mention the ordinary citizens. From what we can see here, probably they don't. This is just a tip of the iceberg of what really goes on behind closed doors. I'm actually even surprised to note that I haven't seen Superman Dwanzira's name here. Because from what we can see, it's actually there's quite a lot of other people probably who are not on this list who is actually benefited from this looting.
Yes, and the interesting thing is these are the official figures, and I'm sure there are some loans that they got underhand, without necessarily declaring them or even being written down somewhere. If the likes of the chief elections officer is getting 46,858, and what would you expect from the outcome of an election if this guy is also in bed with the ruling party? Because obviously he's receiving this money not because he meets the requirements for the loan, but they are kind of trying to bribe him so he can tilt the elections in their favor. And you have the likes of Tobayo Mdede also, who benefited to the tune of 250,896. And this is the guy who is responsible for registering voters and all that kind of. All he's going to do after receiving all that money is to stuff ballots with fake voters, isn't it? So at least he can pay back. So what we are seeing, which is kind of common across board here, is there is a relationship between the release of this money and obviously the work that the ZANU-PF is expecting these people to do. In the case of Tobai Mdede, we know that he is the former Registrar General, and there is quite a lot that's involved. In fact, there's quite a lot at stake in terms of holding that post. You wouldn't just give it to anyone, and he has been benefiting like that. We know one of the challenges that the opposition faced during the registration was that there were a lot of voters that appeared on the register, some of them that died a long time ago. And the likes of Tobai Mdede have got no, they would definitely not be willing to ensure that they remove all this noise from the from the voters register, because they are benefiting from the powers that be. Let's just look at some of the beneficiaries before we go into our main topic for tonight. We're going to be looking at, I think we're more concerned about the men of cloth. At least these guys, right, we can forgive them because they are sinners like us, so it's kind of expected, but it becomes quite, a lot of, it becomes very surprising when we see those that are meant to be our role models also dipping their hands into this pot. Let's see who else has benefited from this.
Yeah, there's one interesting person who has actually benefited quite a lot of money. Themba Mliswa.
Yes.
Themba Mliswa is US 462,999, which he benefited.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see him in parliament he's talking about corruption and all sorts of that, yet he is one of the persons who actually benefited from this farm mechanization program. And I understand he grabbed a farm from one of the white men and he took everything, you see. So you can see the actual persons who are leading us, that, they are all corrupt. Most of them, they are all corrupt, from, as I said, from the ministers, former ministers, to journalists like this Makosin from one. I think we used to work for the ZBC, if I can remember well. And there is also Ruben Barwe. Ruben Barwe got US 79,607. You see, you can actually see how the system is rooted. So no wonder why these bootlickers, when they sing ZANU-PF praises, because they know they are benefiting from the regime. At the end of the day, they have to please their masters. But what's baffling here is actually the clergymen, the clergymen, as you have just said, but having said that, they actually knew what they were doing, because as members of the clergy, I think they teach their congregations to say that you have to, if you have a debt with someone, you have to pay it back, but they cannot do that themselves. So I think we can discuss more on this men of cloth, and at least we have our own opinions on how we see them in light of this development that we have seen today, that they are actually benefited, or they are still benefiting from the regime. Should we trust them? Should we respect them, in light of all this evidence?
You've rightfully said here. It's quite interesting, actually, the likes of Themba Mliswa. And we know he's pretty much ZANU everywhere. And we have seen him try to fight, or at least to pretend as if he's fighting corruption in Zimbabwe. But we know he is one of the biggest beneficiaries of this scheme. And he's very compromised, isn't he?
Yeah, very, very compromised indeed.
Right. In case you're joining us, welcome to our show this evening. We are looking at the latest news coming out of Zimbabwe, and one of the items of news that has come this evening, or earlier today, is the RBZ looters list. I think we received not the full version of it a few days ago, but today we managed to get hold of the full list. And it's got some very interesting characters there. We are trying to see how we can help each other to understand the looting or the rot that we currently experience from those that claim to be fighting on our corner. We also want to be looking at the main topic for tonight. In light of all this RBZ looting, we are trying to understand why the men of cloth are also involved. Why are they dipping their hands in this same rotten pot? And these are the people that everyone looks up to, and we are going to be looking at how we can help each other to understand exactly what's happening. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll take a very small break, and we will be right back. Right. Welcome here to Behind the Mic. We are looking at the latest news from Zimbabwe. Advocate, I just want us to look at there is President Idi Mnangagwa posted something on his Twitter account this evening. Can you just help me here dissect exactly what's going on? We have the spare with me 1 second while I share. This is I think it's some sort of directive that has come out of his office regarding the curfew that has been implemented in Zimbabwe, and these are some of the things that he's asking. I think the sobering reality means that we cannot be complacent. Urgent and decisive measures are required. So this is what was released today. Some of the understand there is now a curfew in Zimbabwe, so you are basically not allowed to be walking around at certain times of the day or at night, and the police are manning the streets of Zimbabwe. Can we just go through before we get into our main topic for tonight? Can we just help me to look at this? What is going on here?
Right. Right. In terms of this curfew, of course, it's all in the name of trying to contain COVID and stuff like that. But there's a big agenda behind this this curfew. Mm-hmm. Because like yesterday we saw like the new COVID regulations about gatherings and stuff like that, which actually is actually trying to prevent people from gathering. The main issue why he's doing that is because of this 31st July protest, which is supposed to go ahead, but because the regime is in a panic mode, they are trying to bring in COVID regulations to suppress this demonstration, so that anyone who they think that is contravening the COVID regulations, then they can be arrested or fined or sent to prison. Mm-hmm. But it's actually in the name of trying to suppress this demonstration, because in the constitution, it gives people the right to protest. Why then have a constitution which it refuses people to to gather and protest against certain government policies or against any grievances that they might have. We've seen time and again that even if, like, say for example, MDC Alliance or MDC, they want to hold a demonstration, they were not given like police clearance. They were actually refused before even the demonstration takes place. So it's not a new thing, but this, because now it's just under the cover of COVID to say, okay, let's impose these regulations under COVID, but actually these regulations are a target for the protesters on the 31st of July, and this curfew, it actually is probably a protective measure from his side, just to suppress the voices of dissent.
Right. So let's just go through some of the new regulations or some of the new guidelines that have been released today. So if you look at the first one, it says all non-working sections of our population will be required to stay at home, except for purposes of securing food, water, and health services. So this is basically to quell the planned protest, isn't it? They've just killed everything because for as long as it takes, I don't know how long this curfew is going to last for, but it looks like we have new guidelines here. I think it's from Wednesday the 22nd, with effect from tomorrow, Wednesday the 22nd, which was today. All business premises must operate from 08 hours until 3 o'clock, with the exception of providers of essential services. And so where travel and social contact becomes essential and inevitable, every Zimbabwean should and must uphold the 4 requirements set out by the World Health Organization. I think they even are trying to drag the World Health Organization into this. So do you think that basically with one stroke of a pen, he has killed the July 31st planned protest?
Right. To be honest, I think he's trying to dance on thin ice, because if it comes to a point whereby the masses' voices cannot be suppressed anymore, people can still go on the streets and demonstrate. But now I think he's trying to measure the mood to see, what will actually happen. You see, because like now, especially the arrest of Gopwell and the Jacob Ngarivume is kind of a warning to say, if you go against these guidelines, these COVID guidelines, we'll do the same to you. You see. So from my own point of view, he's trying to instill fear into people. You see, because he's saying that all non-working people in Zimbabwe, no one is working, but people are trying to survive. No one is working. They're just trying to survive.
Yes.
Because if you tell me that there is a 95% unemployment, so the 5%, these are just probably, a few people. So basically, we can actually say that no one is working in Zimbabwe. The whole country is looking for work, because people are just trying to survive by the day, because they don't have any kind of decent salaries. They don't have any hope of getting a pay slip. I've spoken to some of my friends who are there. They haven't even had a pay slip, in so many years. They don't know what it looks like. You see, so basically, we cannot say, people are working in Zimbabwe. They are not. They are just trying to survive and feed their families. So,
Yes.
in my own opinion, this Mnangagwa, he is trying to instill fear into people and continue his iron fist rule by imposing these kind of legislations or regulations under the cover of COVID, just to instill fear in the masses. So because he knows what's coming his way, and he knows that if people go on the streets, he will probably be out of power, by the day.
Yes, I think there's we haven't heard of any country that has implemented such measures, especially what we are seeing here, to try and deal with the this COVID pandemic? And is there a need for a curfew at all? I think like you're saying that he's just trying to link or to hide under the cover of COVID to implement these unnecessary curfew. We've had places like Italy and maybe, I don't know whether in Italy there was a curfew, but it's quite interesting that point number 3 here says, as of tomorrow, Wednesday the 22nd, which was today, all our security forces must enforce a dusk to dawn curfew set to come into force daily between 1800 hours and 600 hours. Only essential services are exempt from this curfew. So, but we're not told when this is going to end, isn't it? Do we know when? We know it started today. Do we know when this is going to end?
Yes. You see, now that's where, that's his strategy. Because there should have been at least an end date to say, okay, this curfew should run probably for 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks, and judging the, what would be happening with the coronavirus cases. But if he imposes a regulation where there is a curfew which is indefinite, it means that it's not really a curfew per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's some kind of strategy to oppress the people's freedom, so that he can do whatever he wants. He can continue to rule. Because what if there is no end to that curfew? Mm-hmm. Probably December, January, so he's trying to suit everything to his advantage, so that people don't have any say, as I said, under the cover of these COVID regulations, which he has taken advantage of at this time. You see, he's actually taken the advantage so that he can give an excuse to say, oh, we were trying to control the COVID cases, we're trying to control coronavirus. So obviously, anyone who transgresses these COVID regulations, they'll be arrested or fined or imprisoned or whatever measures they try to put. But at the same time, putting security forces on the street, like the soldiers and where there are very few countries that I've seen where they put like the soldiers on the army, like in the United States, probably the National Guard, or here, the soldiers here, they'll be trying actually to help, like with the distribution of PPE, testing, making tests of coronavirus or food supplies or anything. But in hours, they will be holding guns and baton sticks so that they can suppress the voices of the people. So that's the irony with what happens in the Western democracy and in our motherland. Unfortunately, ours is the other way, where the people are suppressed. They are not allowed to do anything. They are not allowed to protest. They are not allowed. Their basic human rights. So it's a shame that we've got such kind of an administrative, like a tyrannical government that is in power.
Yes, very interesting, because we know that this government will stop at nothing to basically ensure that they remain in power forever, and they are trying by all means possible to ensure that they quash the efforts or the plans of the July 31 protest. What do you see? What do you think? Do you think that the protest is still going to go ahead? I've seen the likes of Promise Mkwananza from Tajamuka. They're insisting that there is no demon in hell that is going to stop the protest from going ahead. What's your take on?
Right. If these like pressure groups or human rights groups, which are also like in Zimbabwe, like Tajamuka and others, if they like put like maximum kind of level of influence on the people, there's nothing that can stop this demonstration going forward. But because we are dealing with people who are ruled, by fear all the time. So it takes courage for the protest leaders to come together and, convince the people, persuade the people to say, look, let's go on the streets and fight this once and for all. Because otherwise, it's the same thing over and over again. Because if only a few people attend the demonstration, it will have of no effect at all. But if people turn out, in their numbers, to despise this government, then at least probably there will be some kind of a good result. But if there is no proper balance on what they are going to do on the 31st, otherwise most of the people will just stay at home because they fear being beaten by the soldiers or by the police. You see, so it's the way in which they are going to persuade the people to do the protests, to come out in numbers, despite all the the threats and the what the administration is saying. So there has to be a balance somehow, so that they can get out the people out of the streets. But if only few voices speak to say, let's go out, it might not reach everyone. Then people, they just stay inside because they think, oh, if we go, we'll be shot by the guns, we'll be beaten by the baton sticks, we'll be be kicked, we'll be abused. So
right, yeah. So
yes.
that's the challenge that we face here, and I think ED is most likely going to receive sympathy from the likes of the World Health Organization. If he goes ahead and implements this, I believe this is starting as of today. I don't know how successful the curfew has been observed, but given that there was already a lockdown in place, I don't see any reason why anyone would go against this. But we'll see what happens on the 31st, which is next week. There are still efforts to ensure that this protest goes ahead, but we are seeing a lot of blockers. In fact, the likes of Ngaruvume was leading this have been arrested, and one of the most vocal, at least advocates for some form of not necessarily uprising, but at least he was exposing the corruption which was happening in Zimbabwe. I think they're going to keep him behind bars until, or at least after, they will keep him inside, and you'll probably get his bail after the 31st of July. So they've basically tried everything possible to ensure that July 31 doesn't go ahead. But we are not losing hope. I think there is hope in, as long as we keep hoping, I think we will have a solution soon. And then we are going to now jump into our topic for tonight. This is a topic that we think is relevant to the news of the day. Here on Behind the Mic, what we try to do is to look at the latest or the most interesting news coming out of Zimbabwe, and then we try and discuss and obviously see how we can help each other to understand exactly what's happening in Zimbabwe. In case you're joining us, this is Behind the Mic, and I have my good friend who always joins me on this show every 9 p.m. GMT. That's Advocate Chapwanya, who is a well-respected lawyer here in the United Kingdom. Thank you, Advocate. We will take a very short break and we'll be right back. Yes, Advocate, are you still there? Let's jump into our
Yes,
topic
I'm
for
here.
tonight. Can you hear? Yes. So let's just look at the topic that we want to discuss tonight. Behind the mic, this is a live talk show, daily live talk show that happens here every day on Zim Daily. We are streaming to 3 platforms tonight. If you want to join us, you can join us also on Twitter. We are also streaming live on YouTube and also here on Facebook. And the topic for tonight is, in light of the RBZ looting, can the men of cloth be trusted? Can we trust those that are meant to be the ones that are upholding at least some of the morals that we expect from the people that call themselves the men of God? Can we trust these men that are involved in so much looting that we are seeing today? Advocate Chapwanya, can you just break that down for us? Some of the figures that we saw from the list actually involve at least 5 of the most prominent bishops in Zimbabwe. We've got the likes of Bishop
Right.
Mtendi, and we also have the likes of Guti, Ezekiel Guti, and a few others. Help us to understand
Right.
what's going on here.
Right. From this list that we published in the afternoon, now we are focusing on the men of the cloth, which is actually, the subject for tonight. Right. So I'll go with it this way. So we start with, Archbishop Ezekiel Guti, who is the founder of the Zimbabwean Assemblies of God Africa Zioja Ministries, which is a big organization. He actually benefited to the tune of US 116,693, a loan which was also which he got from the RBZ, and he has never paid back. Right. So this is the first one. Then the second one, who is probably the highest benefactor, the beneficiary, is Bishop Nehemiah Mutendi, who had 2 loans. First, he had a loan of US 271,000 US dollars, and the second loan he had US 315,600, which makes a grand total of US 586,600. So this is Bishop Nehemiah Mutendi, who is also the leader of the ZCC, I think Zion Christian Church, which also is a very, very big organization, in Zimbabwe and in other countries like Botswana, I think also in South Africa and other countries. Then third, we've got Norbert Kunonga, who also received a loan of US 98,661 US dollars. And I think Norbert Kunonga, he is probably one of the leaders of the factions of the Anglican Church. From what I can remember, at one point he actually used the police to seize, to prevent seizure of assets from their division in the Anglican Church. So he also got a loan of US 98,661. Then Agatha Kunonga, I think she is the wife. She received 58,318,000. Then we have Rutendo Chaunashe. She also received US 18,200 US dollars. So this is just the list of the few clergy people who benefited from the RBZ loans, and they have up to date never returned these loans to the RBZ. So only from these men of the cloth, I think it's more than 1 million, considering that Bishop Mtendi has got almost 600,000. Then Ezekiel Good 100,000 and others, from close to 1 million, US dollars, which has never been returned to the central bank, to the RBZ. So now the main question here is, it's amazing how and what processes were followed so that these people would get these loans, on what basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, especially Bishop Nehemiah Mtendi, he's got a very, very big church, and they've got so many assets, and the church is like in all countries, and he also, I think he's also the owner of that school in, is it in Bikita? I think Mutendi High School. That's his school as well. I think it's a boarding school or something like that. You see, then we have Ezekiel Gutu, who is the leader of the Sayoja Church, right? So these are the men of God. These are the men who we look up to. These are the men who, must be, must guide us,
Mm-hmm.
through their moral compass. But when we see things like this, how are we able to trust, their leadership, or or even believe what they preach to us? So it's a bit of a concern, because it's tonight we are focusing on these clergymen because of what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main question tonight. How on earth can these people be trusted? You see, or they are using their, so at the same time they are also using the church as a means of reaping their own, their own rewards through the mechanization, or the the offerings, or the whatever offering they get from their churches.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question that we have to ask ourselves, is as citizens, as congregants, to some extent, to say, how on earth are we going to trust these men of God who benefited from this scheme, and they have the means and the capacity to pay back the loans,
Mm-hmm.
but they just ignore it. They just ignore it. They are not bothered. They just say, well, they got the money that they are not going to return. You see, but people, some other people, they might think that, what, this money is not enough for the, to change anything in, in our economy. But it does actually. Every little helps,
Mm-hmm.
because if we look at the list, considering these other politicians and stuff like that, that's quite a lot of money that's been just be given to people, and they are not even returning it. So it will have an impact on the taxpayers, because you keep feeding, this regime by your taxes, which must be used for, for the public benefit, you know. So I actually like the idea, in this country. There's always the public benefit test here in the United Kingdom. You know, they do have that. Those are mechanisms to say, okay, for certain purposes, is it going to benefit the public or not? If it doesn't, then which means that it doesn't work, you see, and they do away with that. But unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, it's just an order from someone to say, oh, give so much, 500,000, write a
Mm-hmm.
check, and they get it. Give Wicknell 500,000, and they get it. Give so and so, you see. So why do we at the end of the day blame the sanctions, yet we are causing our own problems by mismanagement and being greedy and
Yes, and the
maladministration?
interesting thing, like we have been saying, is this is just the official figures. If you actually think of the non-official figures that these people have been receiving and the support that they receive
Yes.
unofficially from the government, we know that there are loans that were transferred from the central bank. Some of these loans, I believe, I don't know if you saw the debt that the government assumed from the RBZ. Do you remember the figure that we were talking about, where I think it was billions of dollars that the government basically assumed on behalf, by government we basically mean here the people of Zimbabwe are shouldering that burden,
Yes.
because the likes of our men of cloth and people may also be asking, but why target these? In why are we not talking about the likes of ED and the others that have also stolen? But as far as we are concerned, it is these men that are supposed to be leading by example. the
Yes.
Jesus that they preach to people is not the Jesus that they are practicing, and this is they become of interest because they are basically what Jesus would have called hypocrites. So we are trying to look at the men of cloth, or rather the clergy in Zimbabwe that are benefiting also from this looting that is currently ongoing. And we expect them, at least the likes of Uta Unashe, we expect these people to lead by example. And I know this is something that gets a lot of people quite animated when we start talking about their papas, touch not the the anointed. The moment you start pointing out at some of the things that are happening that are not right, you just hear touch not. But we know that we are supposed to call sin by its name.
Yes,
and
that's right.
It is quite interesting, at least for me. I'm actually interested in those that claim to represent Christ, and yet they are representing the enemy in this case. So it's very interesting in that sense. Uta Unashe, we see a small figure here of 18,200. This is Rutendo Uta Unashe. Do we know who this Rutendo is? It sounds like the wife or the...
It sounds like the wife of Uta Unashe, the Reverend Uta Unashe. But definitely we'll get more details about who she really is. And to some extent, I think as citizens, we should pressure these people to say, look, you should pay back these loans. You see, because they've actually benefited. I think these loans, they were given like some time ago, of which they should actually pay them back with interest, because this is public money. This is the taxpayers' money. As you are currently saying that the government, they say they are going to assume the debt, but that debt is going to be paid by people who are already struggling to to make ends meet. So
yes, and this is the kind of money that you hear when they start talking about the IMF debt that they have to pay and all that kind of stuff. This is the same debt that is it's money that was given to the likes of the Mutendis and the Uta Unashes and the Gutis of this world. And the ordinary man is the one that is assuming that debt. And then that debt then translates into what we normally hear as the IMF loan, the monies that the government would have borrowed from the IMF in order to at least balance their books. But we see this money going into the pockets of the men of cloth, among many others. So it is quite interesting, and it's sad actually to hear that we have people that are meant to be representing Christ, so to speak, being involved in such activities.
Right. Or still on that point now, because these are the men of the cloth, right? I'm just thinking outside the box to think that, look, how many of their members, right, of their congregation, people in their congregations who are struggling, probably financially, probably they don't have food, probably they don't have anything, they don't have school fees. How many of them, if actually give back to their to their communities or their congregations, like to support them? Probably if we go deeper with this, we can actually see that it was for their own benefit, not even for the benefit of the church or even for the benefit of the community. But probably to some extent they probably got this loan through the name of the church, but actually for their own personal gain. Right, because there's more to this than actually meets the eye, because we can actually see the link. Now we can, our eyes are open to say, oh, this is why Ezekiel Guti is always talking good about ZANU-PF. This is why Bishop Mutendi is always talking good about ZANU-PF. This is why Rev Uta Unashe doesn't even talk against ZANU-PF. So now we've opened our eyes, we've seen what's really going on behind the scenes. And it is a shame that such people in high places, especially the leaders of congregations who are supposed to be the guardians of their congregants, they shouldn't be doing something like that. That's setting a bad example. You see, so basically, what they are teaching here, they are actually saying that if you get a loan from someone, if you borrow money from someone, don't give it back. So basically, this is what they are actually saying here. But this is a statement, right? This is a statement. So because if
Yeah.
they
So
go on,
what sort of advice would you then give to, if I am a member of the church here and I happen to go to Bishop Utaunashe's church or Ezekiel Guti? What sort of what would you advise anyone who attends these churches?
right? You know what? Because the problem now with these with people who attend some of these churches, if you try to talk to them, sometimes they see nothing wrong with it. They will tell you that there is nothing wrong, because they are that kind of thing. Touch not they are anointed. It's actually kind of like they kind of like being brainwashed. But if it was me or someone who is bold enough, you see, you can actually question them to say, look, obviously it will be behind closed doors to say, look, you know yeah, I disagree. You can actually disagree with what someone is preaching about because they are not doing the same thing. Unfortunately, in churches there are also politics. There are also politics. Some people end up being threatened, or all sorts of things happen. So it's kind of like a very difficult area on how to approach them or what kind of advice you can give to them. But seeing this, obviously it will be based on kind of individual decisions on like what you really want to do. Do you still want to go to that church, or because obviously they are preaching what they don't do, so it will be like kind of an individual decision to each and every person, probably, because some people they might see it in another way, especially those who have benefited or probably who are also benefiting from the church. They might see it in another way to say there's nothing wrong with this. So
All
it's a
right.
kind of like it's not like a one size fits all argument that we can say it will be resolved this way. It can go either way depending on
Right.
who you're talking to and what's the benefit they are getting from.
All right. Yes. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that comment. In case you're joining us here on Behind the Mic, you can contribute to the show. We have our comment sections, those that are watching on YouTube and Twitter. If you've got anything to say or maybe to defend these men of cloth and you have a very good reason to, please feel free to pass your comments in our comment sections, especially on the platforms that we're broadcasting live to. Joining us here live on Behind the Mic is my good friend IP Chapwanya, who is an advocate and a lawyer, who is helping us tonight to look at the topic in light of the RBZ looting. Can the men of cloth or the bishops of the churches that have benefited from what we want to term looting, can these men be trusted? Yes, this is Behind the Mic. Please feel free to use our comment section if there's anything that you want to add to what we are saying, or if there's anything that you don't agree with, and if you feel that we should not touch the anointed. They should not be touched because they are anointed, whether they are doing anything right or wrong. We should just watch them continue in their waywardness. We are going to take a short break and we will be right back in the next minute. Thank you very much for joining us here on Behind the Mic. Right. Yes. Thank you once again for joining us here on Behind the Mic. We are looking at a very, not very interesting, but interesting in to us at least for tonight. It is the topic that we have here on our screen in light of the RBZ looting. Can the men of cloth be trusted, especially those that have benefited? We are looking at the likes of Norbert Kunonga, who is a well-known ZANU-PF sympathizer. He benefited to the tune of 98,000, and his wife Agatha Kunonga, who is also listed as having received $58,000. These are just the official figures, but we have no doubt that these people have been receiving some sort of assistance from the state, and every little helps. There is nothing like 98,000 is not a lot of money, or 58,000, but we know that we could go a long way in terms of supporting those that are struggling in Zimbabwe with some of the figures that you're seeing here. And also we have the likes of Bishop Nehemiah Mutendi, who also benefited to the tune of $586,000. This is the official figure, but we know that the money that they've been receiving from the patronage, especially from the support that they've given ZANU-PF, is far much more than this. They are benefiting, and yet they also pretend to be the men that are representing Christ in their churches. We also have Ezekiel Guti, who has benefited to the tune of $116,693. And these are the people that will never say anything wrong about ZANU. We see them in ZANU-PF meetings. We see them in ZANU-PF rallies. They attend ZANU-PF, everything ZANU-PF. But if they were objective and if they represented Christ impartially, we know that they would also be seen in opposition party rallies and also some of the functions that the opposition parties in Zimbabwe are involved in. But the likes of Utaonashe, we know very well that they support ZANU-PF blindly. Not that there's anything wrong with you supporting any party of your choice, but at least if you are going to be benefiting from your support of an organization, that's another definition of the word bribery. You are basically using your influence to receive money, and this is another definition of bribery. Advocate Chapwanya, can we just, as we wrap up now, I think we've gone for about an hour, let's just bring this topic to a conclusion. If Kes, you're joining us here on Behind the Mic, we're looking at the topic that you're seeing on the screen tonight. Let's just bring this to a conclusion. I know there's a few comments that we are receiving on Twitter and also on our Facebook page. We will try to at least highlight one or two. And also, if you're listening to us from our YouTube channel, please also feel free to use the comment section if there's anything that you want to contribute tonight. Yes, how do we want to wrap this up? What is the way forward?
Right. From my own point of view now, considering that these men of God, they've done this act, in their respective positions, me personally, I would say that they, being men of God, they've actually broken God's commandments by stealing. I would call this theft, because one of the commandments, it actually says that do not steal. This is actually stealing, which is in a kind of a formalized way. So obviously, if people say that they are, ministers or clergy or men of the cloth, they should lead by example. That's why you see that there is widespread corruption in our country. It's because people that say, in India, say, let me just steal too. You see, so it won't end there. It won't end in the political arena. Now it's going to churches everywhere. So actually, the whole system is compromised because of these people's actions, especially the men of God. They should lead by example. They should denounce what is good. They should talk out against human rights abuse, but they don't, because they are feeding from the same plate as ZANU-PF. So at the end of the day, our job is to expose these kind of things, but it will be up to the citizens, right? Because it is the taxpayers' money which is being wasted, and people keep suffering. So it will be up to the citizens to what sort of action they would want to take, especially in terms of accountability, and actually, returning these returning these loans back into the coffers. Because you see, this kind of problem, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there, because now we have this bond note which has been printed, I don't know how many times. It's because of these kind of actions by these people, because they weaken the economy, they weaken the system, they weaken everything because of their actions, you see. So if we say that each and every individual in Zimbabwe is given a loan and they don't return it back, how would the economy survive? How would the banks, especially the central bank, survive? It will just collapse. No matter how paltry the money is, still money, is still the taxpayers' money, which must be used in the public interest, in a proper way, for its citizens. You see, but if you have the likes of these clergymen, or these men of the cloth, they are stealing, and they don't even feel ashamed or guilty to say that they are, conniving with the current regime, like in looting the state resources, then shame to them, because they are not fit to be called, men of God. Men of God, they don't do that. Men of God, they do what God wants. They do justice to the people. They look after the orphans and the widowed, and all those things that are listed in the Bible. They should abide by the Bible, because the Bible is the standard of measure of their faith. But if they are going astray, and going into bed with an evil regime, then obviously we wouldn't respect them at the end of the day, because they are just a part of a grand scheme to loot the resources of the nation in the name of being the men of God. So as I said that, you see, most of these people, they are actually compromised. And there is one person that I think we have left. Probably, of course, she's not a woman of, she's not a, a religious person. Of course, she might be in her own capacity. Joyce Mujuru, she also benefited to the tune of what? Let me just find out here. I think it was 100 something thousand, right? She got 131,200 for the Mujuru project, which was worth US 311,868. Right. You see, when she was booted out of government, she was talking about corruption and all this. But you see, these people, they only talk about so-called corruption when they are booted out of power. You see, but if they are still within the circles, they don't say anything bad about the happenings that will be happening behind the scenes. So it's actually a shame that probably, as a nation, we are not going anywhere with this kind of people in power, because it just it just degrades the citizens, just degrades the people, to say that, look, they are working hard for nothing in a country which is actually being the abyss of a failed state, without any hope of a kind of resurrection. So, as I said, that it's up to the people to know what to do with these kind of people. We are not here to tell them to say, do this, do that, do that. This is just our own opinion at the end of the day. But as I said, we have to expose these shenanigans and say, people, look, this is what is happening behind the scenes, so that people, they can have their own informed choices and views about the current happenings.
That is quite interesting, and thank you, Advocate, for that comment, and we are now coming to the end of our show tonight, and we have about 7 minutes to wrap this up. At the top of the hour, we will be signing out for today here on Behind the Mic. One of the things that I just wanted to highlight here is there is a story as we conclude. This is an interesting story that we have just received here as part of wrapping up for tonight. I'll just highlight this is also in line with what is happening with COVID in Zimbabwe. As we conclude this segment of the show, I'm just going to share this. This is quite interesting in the sense that there is... let me just see if I can bring this up properly. So this is a body of someone that has been included with the groceries that are coming from South Africa. So this is a dead COVID-19 body reportedly smuggled in a trailer filled with groceries from South Africa. So it is quite interesting actually what is happening in Zimbabwe. As you can see, I believe what is wrapped in white is what they are referring to here. I've just received this news article from one of our journalist friends in Zimbabwe who is trying to highlight some of the things that are happening around COVID. As we wrap up this show tonight, thank you very much for joining us, and we are going to conclude on this COVID note. We are hearing that there's been quite a lot of, as we know, once you lose your life in South Africa, it's pretty much hard to have your remains repatriated back into Zimbabwe. So people are trying all sorts of things to at least ensure that their loved ones get a decent burial. And some of the things that they are now involved in doing is packaging the bodies of their relatives in some of these grocery packs. I think this person was actually stopped, was pulled over as they were trying to enter Zimbabwe from South Africa. So that's quite interesting. What do you have to say about this, the desperation of our people in South Africa, Advocate?
Right. It's unfortunate that the situation in South Africa is very desperate. I've got some people who are in South Africa, and they are telling me that the number of COVID cases there, they are rising by the day. Mm-hmm. And also, on a side note, there are quite a lot of Zimbabweans who are dying because of COVID-19. And, as you are saying that it's really very expensive and very difficult to repatriate a body just across the border into Zimbabwe. It's a very rigorous process. And so people are using these unscrupulous methods to take dead bodies back into the country, where there's a risk that, many people will get infected, because some people, they can argue to say that how can a dead body with COVID infect other people? But the risk is still there. Let's not run away from the truth, because we now know that COVID, it kills. People are dying, and the number of cases, they are actually rising, especially in Southern Africa, which is in Zimbabwe, in South Africa. And we must take all protective measures to follow the regulations, follow the rules to stay safe, because once we do not take that seriously, by the end of the day, it will affect our families, and it will affect our friends, because once one person can actually infect up to, they said actually to 3,000 people, just from one source of infection. So, and knowing that our government has got like the least resources, we should also take protective measures, especially when it comes to the issue of COVID-19, because we know that things are really bad in South Africa. Most people, they are not working. Companies have closed. Some, they don't even have rent to pay have rent to pay. They don't even have money for food or anything. So people, they try to go by and make try to survive. But at the end of the day, in trying to survive, like in this case, it's putting everyone at risk. So, I really don't know how far the Zimbabwean government is prepared to deal with the COVID crisis, especially considering that the cases they are rising daily, and from what I'm hearing on the ground, it's a pretty bad situation. That probably in the next few weeks or so, there might be very increase in the number of deaths, and everyone is just in panic mode. So we just hope and pray that the cases won't be as bad as we might be thinking, but you know let's stay safe and take measures to protect ourselves by adhering to the regulations and social distancing measures.
All right. Thank you very much, Advocate Chapwanya. Thank you for helping us with the show today, which is the 22nd of July 2020, where we have been looking at the topic in light of the RBZ looting. What can the topic in light of the RBZ, can we trust the men of cloth that have also been dipping their hands in the rot that we see happening in Zimbabwe? And this is exactly 11 p.m. right here in the United Kingdom, and we are going to end on this very note. We are going to leave you with some of the news headlines from Zimbabwe as we sign out, and you're going to be seeing a few headlines from some of the stories that we received today. One to take note of is obviously the arrest or the bail hearing of Hopewell Chungono and Mr. Jacob Garuvima. It has been postponed to next week. They are just going to keep on postponing it until after the 31st of July, just to ensure that they contain them while they clamp down on the rest of the populace in Zimbabwe. So from what we are seeing, they seem to be succeeding in ensuring that the July 31st demonstration does not go ahead. But we'll see what happens. There are still people out there that are very determined to ensure that this succeeds. And I'm sure they have the support of many in and outside Zimbabwe. This is one of the news stories that we are signing out with. Hopewell Chungono and Jacob Ngaruvime today at the Harare Magistrates Court. We can see him here on your right, on my right, in handcuffs, and the gentleman on the other side on our left is Jacob Ngaruvime. And we also have another strange story here that we received today. This is a body that was being smuggled through the Beitbridge border post. We understand that what is happening here, what you're seeing here on the picture, is a dead COVID-19 body reportedly smuggled in a trailer filled with groceries from South Africa. We know that pretty much almost everyone who dies now is COVID. We don't have any more statistics of people dying from anything else except COVID. So chances are, if you get hit by a car, you are most likely going to be recorded as a COVID statistic. We want to thank you tonight for joining us, and we will be signing out now. And thank you very much. Join us here once again tomorrow, where we'll be discussing something else different, everything Zimbabwe. See you. Bye-bye.